Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuno here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
All right, good morning, Aggie Land. Welcome to TexAgs Radio. This is the Thursday, March 14th version of the show. I am not David Nuno. I am Ryan Brauninger. Mr. Nuno, Senor Nuno, is going to take a couple of days vacation down in the lovely, picturesque island of Galveston with his family. And so at some point during the show today, if you are intaking our program via something you can watch, so YouTube or on our TexAgs site, I'm going to have Nick, and I'm just now putting this on Nick this morning. I will be having Nick make a Photoshop of David Nuno's head and maybe even Billy Lucci's head on the Island Boys, and it will pop up on this screen behind me at some point over the course of the show, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Nick, that's your assignment as you continue to pull the strings back there. It's not like you have anything else going on. Like I said, I'm Ryan Brauninger. This is TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, and we are going to start our morning like we start every single morning with a Go Hour presented by the warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon U is your ultimate stop for brand name apparel, gifts, and accessories for the entire family. And with that, I welcome in via Zoom from Nashville, Tennessee, a fresh-faced, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed Mr. Olin Buchanan. Olin, good morning.
Actually, I'm currently from Brentwood, Tennessee, in the lovely courtyard Marriott in room 276 of the Brentwood, which is about probably about 10 miles from downtown Nashville, but the rates are a lot cheaper. By the way, who are the Island Boys?
You're going to do. I'm not going to go through that in one of these segments. You'll have to do that between during the commercial break.
I know who the Island Boys are.
When you think of David Nuno in a beach setting, he's got a little Island Boy vibe. That's all I'll say.
He's the Island Boy.
No, he's not one of the popular Island Boys, but he could be.
There's somebody called the Island Boys.
Yes,
like
they're twin brothers. They went viral about a year and a half ago for well, I'll just let you look it up during the break. But
I'm ignorant on such things.
You're ignorant on a lot of things, let me tell you.
A lot of things.
But, now that you have completely revealed your location, your hotel room number, if anybody's got any debts in Tennessee they need to collect off of Olin Buchanan, he's in the room 276 in Brentwood, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, Olin, you're up there for the start of, or at least A&M start of the SEC tournament. Huge game tonight against the Ole Miss Rebels. We're going to get into that. We've got Stephen McGee on the show a little bit later this hour. We're going to have Jim Schlossnagle talk to us ahead of a top 10 matchup to start SEC play in Gainesville as the Aggies travel over to take on the Florida Gators starting tomorrow night. I'm going to get Aaron Torres on the show. We've got Logan Lee a little bit later. We've got the fan show to close us out on this Thursday. But, Olin, we've got a lot of basketball to get to, but the news of the day, what should dominate a lot of this program, I think, and what has dominated the headlines over the last 24 hours is that Texas A&M made a hire as its athletic director. Trev Alberts comes from Nebraska. I guess without me trying to put my spin or opinion on anything just yet, what did you think of the hire in the research you've been able to do on his time in Lincoln?
Well, I just went, Trev Alberts, okay. I had a friend of mine from Austin. He texted me last night saying, I'm not on board with Trev Alberts. I'm like, why not? Well, what has Nebraska sports been under him? I'm like, well, I know they're good in volleyball, but I would come back with, and this again, it's not a shot at Trev by any means, but even before Trev got there, when has Nebraska been good at, other than football, what men's sports you look at and say, man, they were great at that? So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not holding Trev Alberts accountable for their basketball team not being great, or their baseball team. I don't know if it's great or not. I don't think it is. I'm not holding him accountable for that. And quite frankly, it seems to me that their football program was making progress since he got there. I mean, he fired Scott Frost, right? I think he was the guy who fired Scott Frost. So that's so the fact that he would identify a problem and move on from it, I think is, positive. But I'm not an expert on Trev Alberts by any means. I don't know a lot of it. I know he played in the NFL. I know he's a high draft pick. I think with the Colts, maybe. I can't recall that. And he was a really good player at Nebraska. I remember that as a defensive lineman.
Let me say this, Olin. For the people, and there was a thread on the message boards, and I didn't click on it, but I saw it had a lot of interaction, and the title was, "Sell Me on Trev Alberts." Well, if that's the opinion that you're going in with, then what's the point? The fact of the matter, just like the coaching hire that was just made in football, that a lot of people were not super fired up when A&M hired Mike Elko, and then they look at the progress that he's made over the last 3 or 4 months, but just like that, you don't know. You don't know how this is going to go. So for people to be so definitive either way that this is going to work out, I think is extremely premature.
Look, I like that Trev Alberts has a background in football, right? So that makes me believe that he wants football to be successful. And I think you better prioritize football here. I believe that. So if he's willing, or what is the athletic director going to do anyway? He's going to raise money and he's going to support the coaches and programs. Say, hey, what do you need to be successful? All right, I'll do my best to provide you with what you need to be successful. And why would I doubt Trev Alberts in that? Why would I celebrate it yet? But I don't have a problem with the hire. I really don't. But who would you have? I would say to those that want to be sold, I'd say, who would you have been excited about as athletic director, and why?
Yeah, they probably couldn't name you 5 other athletic directors across the country.
Exactly. I like Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma is an amazing athletic director, but he's not leaving Oklahoma.
Sure, yeah. Then you'd have to go name me 5 other guys or 5 other guys or girls that you would have wanted, and then how hireable were they?
Yeah, that's my point, right?
And by the way, a lot of people would have said that Trev Alberts wasn't hireable from Nebraska. And another, to me, a good indicator of what kind of job he had done in Lincoln is look at the reaction of the Nebraska fan base over the last 24 hours.
Right. I agree with that. I know Billy likes to point out, hey, when there's a coaching hire or an athletic director hire, you want to take a guy that they're upset that he's leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's the case.
And the overwhelming majority of folks in Lincoln and throughout the Nebraska fan base were highly irate on social media yesterday that he was leaving for Texas A&M. And look, I think it's a shrewd move by President Mark Welsh. I really trust, if you're an A&M fan and you're unsure of okay, I don't know much about Trev Alberts, look who was on the committee to make the hire. Do you trust Joni Taylor? I seem to trust Joni Taylor. Do you trust Jim Schlossnagle? I would especially trust Jim Schlossnagle as he's in the midst of trying to get a stadium built. Do you think that he would have hired somebody that would have thrown a wrench into those plans? Right. And look, we'll ask Coach Schlossnagle about it here a little bit later on at the 9 o'clock hour. But you just look, and then President Mark Welsh has really kind of made an impact on a lot of folks on the athletic side throughout this search, when you start listening to him talk about how organized and how open he was to listening to all opinions, and Billy was on the show yesterday talking about the pool of candidates that A&M went through before they landed on Trev Alberts, and how it was current sitting athletic directors, outside of the box candidates that were not necessarily in collegiate athletics. So it seems like their search was exhaustive, and then you would very much trust the people that helped make the decision.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have any issue with Trev Alberts. Hey, have an open mind and see what he does. But if you want to put it under that microscope, like I said, from the guy that texted me last night saying, sell me on it or make me feel better about it, because I can't hold the fact that Nebraska doesn't have a strong basketball program against Trev Alberts. It's never had a strong basketball program. And have they made progress in football? Yeah, I mean, it's not. I heard somebody say Nebraska hadn't been to a bowl game since 2016, but at least they're getting closer. I mean,
I like Matt Rule.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a nice hire. So give Trev Alberts credit for that. I'm fine with it. And again, I said it before, and it might ruffle some feathers for some that feel differently, but I like the idea that he's a football background, because football pays almost all the bills, and it's the highest party sport. And if Mike Elko is good with Trev Alberts, and I don't know if he is or not, but if Mike Elko is good with it, then I think everybody should be.
If you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150. You can text us. You can call us. You can shoot a message at us on Twitter. You can shoot a message at us on the YouTube page or the chat there on the site. Callie Garner is in the Angry Elephant Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Like your politics, love your bar. Find an Angry Elephant near you today. Bryan, College Station, Magnolia, Frisco, San Antonio, all over the state. Callie, good morning.
Good morning, Bronny. How's it going?
Good. Do you have an impassioned stance on the new athletic director?
I don't. I kind of agree with you guys. I think we need to give him time at A&M. I was talking to a few people, and they said, ask me the same question in a year, ask me the same question in a year and a half, and I'll give you a much better answer, because right now I feel like it's unfair to kind of throw around speculations on how he's going to be at A&M when we really don't know. Yeah,
it's certainly, OB, it's a results-based business. Everything is, whenever it comes to a fan base's interaction and a fan base's feelings on a coach, an administrator, whatever. They can really like them as human beings, but in the end, it's a bottom-line business. For coaches, are you winning games? For administrators, athletic directors, are you moving us in the right direction within the parameters of what college athletics is today? And I'll tell you this, in the research that I was doing on Trev Alberts yesterday, he had gotten Nebraska's NIL program, which is at the very forefront in big, bright, bold letters in terms of what some of the main discussion points and importance and prevalence in college sports is right now. NIL is at the forefront of that. And what he'd done to kind of get Nebraska's NIL program up and off the ground is pretty remarkable. So much so, Olin, that I believe they had a brick and mortar NIL building for like a one-stop shop for people that either wanted to buy merchandise, they wanted to give donations to NIL. They had like some business. So if you wanted to partner with the university through and use some of your dollars through NIL for your business and promoting your company with the student athletes, they had that. I'd have to go. It's a long video and it's on YouTube, but I do know it was essentially a storefront, and that was really innovative.
Well, that right there tells me that he's the guy, because your athletic director has to embrace NIL, right? He just has to see the value in it and not only accept it, but take steps to use it, enhance it. And if he's doing that in Nebraska, I would assume that we'll see something similar at A&M soon. and it'll be remarkably successful because the easiest job in the world has to be raising money for Texas A&M athletics from Aggies.
Sure, and I think that there are still, and it's gotten so much better than it was. A&M has always been one of the nation's leaders in NIL since its advent. What was it, in 2022? But there have been areas that other schools have been able to take advantage of where A&M was either, it's a copycat game. This NIL stuff is a copycat game, just like football is a copycat. So the NFL is a copycat league. So A&M was a little bit behind in some of these innovative arenas to increase that revenue or that money generation for NIL funds. And it'll be interesting to see where he comes in and puts his fingerprints on the NIL program and how quickly he's able to do that. But I want to go back to a question that you raised was, what does an AD even do anymore? Like, what is the job of an athletic director? And you went back and you talked about Nebraska basketball or Nebraska football, whatever. What influence does the athletic director have on winning games? It should be zero.
Right. Other than, again, hiring and firing coaches, except, they go to committees too often. But if you're the athletic director, hey, take it on, say, yeah, I'll put my job on this guy or woman. So hiring and firing coaches. And then, again, it's just, to me, this is oversimplifying, but I schedule a meeting with every coach and I say, what do you need to be successful? And the more important your program, the more priority I'm going to put on it. I mean, that makes sense, right? And I will do my best to provide what you need to be successful. Now, sometimes you might say, I don't think you have to go 100% in. If one coach said, for instance, to be successful, I have to go for every game on Thursday when everybody else goes Friday, maybe a guy says, okay, but when you're not seeing the results, you say, and that's just an example. You say, okay, we're not going to do this. So I don't think you give them carte blanche, but you say, what do you need to be successful? Okay, I'll do everything I can to provide what you think you need to be successful. But you know what? You better be successful because part of my job is firing coaches too.
Yeah, and I
like coach is not afraid to fire a coach. And hey, by the way, maybe, and I know this just isn't on the athletic director, maybe not give extensions and raises when a coach just does what he's supposed to do.
Well, let me clarify what I said. I think an athletic director plays a massive role in the success of an athletic department for the reasons you said. But on game day, when Buzz and his players lace them up and they go out on the hardwood, the athletic director has nothing to do with the results on game day. What he can do is make sure that program, as you said, has everything that it needs to succeed on game day. But on the practice field, on the courts, he's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind figure, and it goes to the head coaches. And I will say this, if you look around the athletic department at A&M, I like where a lot of those programs are in terms of their head coach being able to run the day-to-day and be really efficient at it.
Hey, and you know what you said on game day, I just want to give you what you need to be successful on game day. And what's the number one thing now that you need to be successful on game day? I would argue a strong NIL program.
Yeah.
And that brings us right back to what you were saying. You researched about Trev Alberts and what he's started at Nebraska. So it makes, with that in mind, it makes perfect sense.
All right, we're up against the breaks. On the other side, we will get into Texas A&M versus Ole Miss tonight in Nashville. The reason that Olin is joining us via Zoom this morning. We've got a lot of basketball on the docket. We'll continue to talk about Trev Alberts. Also, I do want to get into maybe a little bit later in the show with Aaron Torres or maybe just some of my own thoughts. Some of the stuff Nick Saban talked about on Capitol Hill in the current state of athletics in collegiate sports and then the crossover with NIL. But a lot more to get to. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Welcome back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Ryan Brauninger joined by Zoom with Olin Buchanan. This is Coffee Talk, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of the mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. I could use a cup of mud right now. And I believe, Olin, we have something to show you. Look at that's what I needed. Just a couple of pals, just David and Billy enjoying life on the boat there in Galveston Island. Just a couple of island boys.
Yeah, that water looks a little bit too blue for it to be Galveston.
Don't worry about where they're at. Just know that they're having a great time on a boat. Billy, I think, looks like Billy's got maybe a cigar in his hand. And it looks like, I would assume that's a bottle of Evian water. But, yeah, that's how I would imagine Billy and David enjoying a family vacation together.
Well, I know that's Billy's head on someone else's body, but, Nuno is tatted up like that.
I haven't seen him shirtless as much as you have, so you would have a better
idea.
Well,
he, when we're on the road, he likes to walk around shirtless.
Oh, yeah, of course. He's very proud of it. Hey, yeah. Aggies and Rebels tonight there from Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. OB, we only got you for one more segment, so we're a little bit shorter because we're going to have McGee on, and it's a lot to navigate with two guys on Zoom, and you never know what McGee's going to say.
I'll just go to breakfast.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we can be of convenience for you. But just some things you're looking at going into tonight. And is this a must-win game?
I think so. I don't know if beating Ole Miss gets them in the NCAA tournament, but I feel strongly that if they lose, that they're out. Yeah, I think it's as close to a must-win game as you could come up with. I wonder what adjustments is Ole Miss going to do defensively to try to keep Manny Obaseki from exploiting them the way he did last week, and then what adjustments to those adjustments will Buzz and Manny make?
Yeah, look, I'm not a basketball guy. There are going to be people driving around listening to this program that understand basketball at a much higher frequency and rate than I do. And they may listen to this and they go, boy, he's completely wrong. Because let me tell you something, Olin. I've listened to you and David talk baseball in here. I'm like, well, they're completely wrong. But that's the only thing that I know everything about, right?
If I'm completely wrong, all I ever do is say, well, based on what I'm hearing from Ryan Brauninger.
Yeah, good. That's a good job. You're
a
professional at throwing me under the bus.
What's that?
I said you're a professional at throwing people under the bus. That's good.
Well, I'm just saying what repeating what I've been
anyway.
Told.
What I was going to say about basketball, it seems to me that since they have inserted Manny Obaseki kind of in that not lead guard spot, but it seems like Buzz and his staff did a great job of adjusting and putting the most athletic five they could on the floor for big portions of the game. And when you do that, you're talking about Wade and Boots, obviously, then Manny, Anderson Garcia, and Solomon Washington. When you have those five on the floor, that's as athletic as that team is going to get. And I think we've seen the plus minuses greatly in favor of that five when they're on the floor, and Manny's a key part to that.
Manny's where it starts. He wanted to take Boots and Wade off the ball. Right, they don't have the ball in their hands, and quite frankly, I don't think Manny's the greatest ball handler, and not typically the guy that you'd want in a role where he's taking the ball. You're starting your offense with him, but it's working. He's strong. He can contort his body, and he's moving in for shots. And quite frankly, he's making some 3-point shots I didn't think he could make, and hopefully that'll continue. But what he's doing is A&M all year has been looking for this consistent third scoring option. Well, he's been consistent the last 4 games. Let's see if he can continue. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, especially in the last 2 games where he scored 17 against Mississippi State and 25 against Ole Miss, I don't think it's a coincidence that with Manny performing like that Wade Taylor broke out of a long shooting slump in those 2 games. And he's shooting better because he's getting better looks, because it's really not that hard. Defense has to start putting more focus on Manny. There's less focus on Wade. And Boots is just being Boots.
Aggie's 4.5-point favorites tonight. Does that number surprise you a little bit, OB? After
No.
they kind of handled the Rebels fairly easily in Oxford.
Yeah, but the Rebels also beat A&M in College Station, right? So sometimes you can see a team get blown out, and I don't think you want to assume that the next game is going to be the same. Case in point, A&M beating Tennessee by 16 in College Station, and the next time it didn't go so well. So I think A&M's the better team. I think the line, Vegas thinks that A&M's the better team. But I don't think you look at them and say, man, these guys are, 30 points better than they were. That was an outlier. I guess 26 points. That was an outlier. But I do think A&M's a better team. And I think if A&M plays anywhere near its usual level of play, that they'll win the basketball game.
It's interesting, the point that you were making about Manny, and you see it across a lot of sports, is like sometimes all these super talented kids need, and Manny's a super talented kid, all they need is for the light to go on and they start playing with a little bit of confidence. And for whatever reason, maybe it was something in practice, or maybe this kind of change in role was something that Manny thought he could do better and have a bigger impact on this team. So mentally, he took this change extremely well, and he starts playing with a little bit of swagger and a little bit of confidence. And look, what you said about it providing a third scorer, I think is massively important. But look how much better Solomon Washington's playing now. It's kind of been – I think Solomon's had a good year, but he's been playing much better, I think. Kind of coalesces with the insertion of Manny into that role.
Yeah, I think so. Now I think Solomon he's in the second half of his sophomore year. When do a lot of guys start to really emerge? Well, probably in the second half of their sophomore year. So that's not surprising me. And Solomon, you talked earlier about how athletic they are with this lineup. Solomon's a freak athlete, and he plays much taller than a 6'7" frame because he jumps so high. And again, Manny, very athletic. So I think they're starting to play better on the defensive end. And I think both of those guys are a big part of that and their athleticism. But I do think that, that just, you say the light went on for Manny. In the last two games, it's gone on, the light's on like the Vegas Strip. And can he maintain that? If he can maintain playing, I'm not saying scoring 25 points a game, but if he can maintain being a scoring threat, I think A&M could play for a while. They're looking to go to at least the SEC tournament finals for the third year in a row. And gosh, if Manny can continue to play somewhat to the same level that he's been playing in the last four games, and I think that's very realistic.
Obi, before we let you go,
because Lutz and Wade are going to, you count on those two guys. So give them that third option.
Before we let you go, does A&M A, win tonight, and B, get into the NCAA tournament?
A&M wins tonight. I believe that. I believe A&M will win tonight. I'm not as confident about Kentucky. I'll say this. If they win tonight and tomorrow night, I think they'll get in.
But you think if just one win, and you're really sweating it come Selection Sunday?
Absolutely. In fact, one win, I think, quite frankly, I'd be pessimistic.
Well, there are some statistics. There are some statistics now that are in A&M's favor, and
there are.
There's a great thread on the board that's tracking that Luke Evangelist, our young wizard of Aggie basketball, is taking all of these data points from various social media accounts, looking at past history of teams. There are some big factors, most notably quad 1 and quad 2 wins, that are in favor of A&M.
And I would argue those, but you know what? I have come to, maybe I'm just jaded, but I've come to I don't want to call it the realization, but the opinion that A&M can never count on a committee to look at their entire body of work. They're going to look at the 5-game losing streak and the loss to Vanderbilt and 2 losses to Arkansas. I'm afraid if they don't beat Kentucky. Now, if you beat Kentucky, that's another quad 1 win. And, you're quite frankly, you're hoping Florida wins a couple of games, and you're hoping Mississippi State loses to LSU today.
Yep, they definitely need some help. OB, thanks for joining me this morning. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll look forward to your coverage tonight from the game.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
All right, that's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations, as well as.
Hey, Bronny, let's keep it here for just 1 second because the zone's got an amber alert, so they can't hear when we hit a break. So let's kind of tap dance.
Well, good.
Here
I can go back. That was OB on Zoom, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of the morning by going to texags.com/coffee. Let's go over to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Miss Callie Gardner, do we have anybody responding either to talk about the game tonight or the Trev Alberts hire as athletic director?
You know, we've got a few people in the chat kind of going back and forth on opinions and their thoughts on kind of what he's done. There's a lot of people talking about his NIL efforts at Nebraska and kind of what he did there. And you know, I'll say this: I think that people were shocked that he left his alma mater, and I would say that is pretty shocking. But
I mean, it's like Mike Evans. If Mike Evans was the athletic director or Von Miller was the athletic director at A&M, leaving and going somewhere else, it would have to be shocking for sure.
Yeah, I think that that's a very reasonable complaint of theirs. But at the same time, I think when you look at the two jobs, A&M, I would argue, is a better job than the athletic director at Nebraska. So when it comes to things like that, you kind of just have to understand that people have to do what's best for them and their family. And I think that was probably.
Oh, I bet it was almost an impossible decision for him and his family, though. I mean, the sentimental factor there, regardless of what the salary says.
For sure.
The sentimental factor and kind of just the goodwill and all he'd built up there in Lincoln, that took some real courage to leave and take another job. So I commend him for that, because that's something that I don't know that I could have done. But obviously that even furthers your point, Callie, about he must have seen something here at Texas A&M that really intrigued him to the point where he would leave his alma mater and come be the athletic director here.
I agree. I think, and I mean, I may be biased, but I think that there are a lot of great
You're on TexAgs Radio. Of course we're biased.
A&M has a lot to offer, and I'm excited to see what he can do and how he can grow our programs.
All right, when we come back, Dr. Stephen McGee joins the show, and we are rolling right along at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, 8:40 on a muggy Thursday morning here in Bryan College Station. I'm Ryan Brauninger on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the lovely Rollo Insurance Studios. Let's go back out to the hotline where we got our resident expert in all things quarterback and all things medical field, Dr. Steve. I have to quit calling you doctor because people ask me, I've been asked, is Stephen McGee really a doctor? I'm like, maybe, but not the kind that's going to help you with anything.
Fair enough.
Hey,
I like it though.
Did you know? I don't know if you knew that I was going to be hosting. David and Billy are actually on a very luxurious vacation down to Galveston, and we got a picture of them on the boat this morning. They were on like some kind of yacht. Did you see this?
No. That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
Nuno's completely believable for some reason.
Well, I mean, he's been talking about how much he's on he's been on a cut, right? So yeah. He looks good. I didn't know that they both had chains like that, and it's a little early for Billy to be drinking, but whatever. They're having a great time. They're on vacation together. It's Galveston. They're just a couple of island boys.
What are they doing in Galveston?
I don't know. I don't even know that Billy's not in Galveston. I know that, but David is. He's on vacation with his family, and I told him I was going to make that. We're going to make that Photoshop and make fun of him relentlessly throughout the 2 days that I'm on here. But hey, man. I guess we got to start with kind of the biggest news that broke yesterday, and I don't know how much you know about Trev Alberts, but in your opinion, let's start with this. How much of an influence should an athletic director have, not only on football, but on the individual sports themselves?
It's a great question, and I'm perplexed at what an athletic director actually does, and it's no disrespect to Trev Alberts or any of them. I don't know what they do. I can't say. I know, some people say, oh, they do a lot of fundraising for sports. And I don't know, I've heard disagreements with that argument, right? Does the 12th Man Foundation do the primary fundraising, or is the athletic director actually out there doing fundraising? You have the budgets behind the scenes, right, of the finances of the different sports programs, but is the athletic director actually doing that? Or are they out there just politicking with people? I don't know. I know that it gets a lot of headlines, and it has certainly in the last 3 months or so. I guess one thing Aggie fans are pretty aware of is that they seem to be able to mess up a coaching hiring decision pretty easily. But other than that, and let me say this one more thing while I'm on my AD rant. I don't understand why an athletic director is in charge of making a hiring decision at a head coach position. Like, why are they responsible for that? These athletic directors, a lot of which have never even played the game. What do they know about what a good offensive coordinator is, or what a good head coach should be like? That's where, it'd be like you, Ronnie, coming to me and telling me what a good investment manager should look and act like. That just, you would never do that. And in the same respect, I feel like a lot of these guys are, just relying on a sports agent to tell them who they think is a good coaching candidate, which I just completely disagree with.
Well, I think in A&M's defense there with Trev Alberts, he obviously played the game. So on the football side of it, and I think there is some crossover for a guy that's been in so many locker rooms and has interacted with so many successful coaches in the sport of football, that there are some personality traits that carry over that you're looking for in a coach in all sports. So I do think that hiring a former player of Trev Albert's status does help in that arena to kind of quell your concerns.
Exactly. And I'm not sorry, I don't want to come across as I'm talking about Trev Alberts specifically. I'm just saying the bigger picture and what athletic directors actually do. And some of my concerns in the past have been, man, this guy, he's not in touch with modern day football, much less how do these guys know, I'm a one-trick pony. I love to talk football. You talk about football all day long, I'm there. The minute you transition to baseball, I'm out. I will disappear. And so, these guys have to be able to do it all. Now, what a place, what an opportunity, what a job. If I'm an athletic director, I would sign up for the athletic director job at Texas A&M day one. I mean, there's not one better. Just good people and a program or a school, university that's willing to spend unlimited dollars around their program.
To me, Stephen, I think to describe what I would imagine as a successful, really good athletic director is a man or woman who comes in and does everything behind the scenes that allows their coaches to coach their teams. You understand what I'm saying? Provide every piece of support that these coaches need so that when they go to the practice field or when Mike Elko goes inside Kyle Field, all he's got to worry about is coaching his kids.
I agree. Yeah, and I'm totally on board with that.
Now there's a lot that goes into that. Like there's a lot of different branches and avenues that go into that: NIL, facilities, training needs, cafeteria, all goes into making sure that those coaches have all the stuff they need to be successful. But to dumb it down, it would be, do you have what you need? Have I provided you everything you need so that there is no excuse for something that didn't happen on the field for you not to be successful on the field?
I love that. And I would say, though, a lot of athletic directors probably unfairly then would get judged by the success of the underlying programs, right? In which they have no real impact other than, yeah, we're providing you the resources to be successful, but is it their fault when the football program doesn't win? No, I mean, I think that you would say that's on the head coach, but then a lot of these athletic directors don't even hire the head coach in which they were brought in. Like, look at Mike Elko, right? Not under Trev Alberts. Now he's got to go in there and work with this guy. So I agree with you. I'm just saying, for the price tag that athletic directors get paid, I'm not 100% convinced that they're as necessary as the hype makes them out to be. Would you agree with that statement at least?
I think they've been given certain sets of responsibilities in the affairs of college athletics now that they didn't have 5 years ago. So you're looking for somebody that certainly understands the NIL space. And by all accounts, Trev Alberts has been very innovative in that arena and understanding how to manage people. I think coaches now and administrators are more people managers than they ever have been, because you're having to deal with so many things off the field. That's why I think guys like Mike Elko and Buzz Williams and Joni Taylor and Jim Schlossnagle, when they get to coach, you see their passion come out and they talk about, because they just get so tired of dealing with the people managed part of it. They got into this thing to coach. So I think there's certain elements of that to being an administrator as well. But yeah, I would agree. I would agree with what you said. It's a new set of responsibilities, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's lost its importance, because I still think the most successful athletic departments in the country are run by an extremely organized individual that understands the current state of college athletics and can provide as many resources to as many programs as possible.
I agree. Let me say one final note on athletic directors. My other pain point is I don't feel like they actually make the decisions, right? You and I both know the people that make the decisions on who's going to be the head football coach at Texas A&M are higher ups, right? There's a select 5-6 votes that ultimately matter. And those people will be the ones that hire or fire a coach. And we've seen that play out in the last 6 months.
Yeah, but don't you think that the job of the AD is to earn the trust of those people? And regardless of what has happened here before, that a strong AD that has a relationship with those people and the people that are cutting the checks to move the cranes and bulldozers that we see across the street right now, like, it is imperative that – and look, if it wasn't imperative, Stephen, you wouldn't have seen Mike Elko spend so much time getting to know those individuals on a personal level throughout the first month of his tenure here in College Station. So I do think it's important that those people – I'm not disagreeing with your point. I think there are a lot of folks that have a voice on coaching changes, especially amongst the big three sports on a campus. But I think it's really important that the athletic director have a voice with those voices.
I agree. He's got to have a strong relationship with them. But ultimately, if he does not convince those people to make a move, it's not going to happen. And that's my point, is that he's not the decision maker. He's not the top of the chain. He is trying to convince the people at the top of the chain to make a move, and this is why. That's my opinion.
But don't you think that there's a part of an organizational structure that it requires somebody to take, like those people that you're saying are higher up than the athletic director? They don't want every problem within the athletic department being brought to their doorstep. They've got a million other things to do. So it's like me here at TexAgs. Like, I don't bring everything to Billy. right? That maybe I could clean up on my own, because Billy has other stuff going on and he doesn't want me to bring it to him.
1,000%. I'm just talking about the big decisions that do affect him, that affect the university-wide, like hiring of Mike Elko, the firing of Jimbo Fisher. These types of decisions are not made by the athletic director. I think the athletic director presents them to a group of people that ultimately makes those decisions. That's my opinion. Billy Lucci could come on here and y'all could say, hey, you are completely wrong. This is not what happened. But in my opinion, I think that is why Stoops is the head football coach at Kentucky. I think that's why Mike Elko is here and why Jimbo Fisher is on a yacht somewhere.
Hey, do you have time to come back for one more segment? I do want to talk spring football. All right, because that was great discussion. I'm glad we talked about it. But, spring football starts in a week, and we do need to talk about kind of what's happening on the field in Mike Elko's first spring as the head man. So on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Stephen McGee. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Real quick segment before we go to that 9 o'clock break with Stephen McGee. So we're going back out to the hotline to continue our conversation with former Texas A&M and Dallas Cowboys quarterback, Mr. McGee. And Stephen, I guess all spring balls are important, but how important is the first one under a new head coach?
Oh, it's vital. I mean, especially if you're going to have success on the field in year one. Guys are starting over. Even your fourth and fifth year veterans that have a huge leg up because, the offense or defense is so ingrained in their mindset. They're not thinking, they're just out there playing, they're using their athleticism. And so whenever you take that step toward a new offense, you've got to reset everything, right? And so you're trying to get these guys up to speed. And yeah, you can go on a chalkboard, you can go on a dry erase board, whatever, and watch video and do all the things behind the scenes, but there's nothing like a live actual rep on the field to learning. That's where you get the work done. And so there's not a single person on that roster that doesn't need spring ball this year. Years past or, certain parts of an athlete's tenure, you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe this guy can get a lighter load during spring practice. He's a fifth-year senior. We know what he can do. We need to just keep him healthy. We're going to limit his reps. That's not the case this year, right? Everyone needs the reps, especially your quarterbacks. It's just spring football is always an important time for any quarterback. But, for Connor, in a new system, getting your guys, new wide receivers that are going to have key roles, it's just huge, right? You have a lot of new faces on both sides of the football. They've got to get ingrained into these systems. So to answer your question, I can't stress enough how important it is. It's very, very, very much important.
Really quick before we let you go, the toughest part of learning a new offensive system as a quarterback is?
Toughest part?
Timing, verbiage.
It depends on the system, right? Verbiage would be true for an NFL system, right? I mean, it's very difficult. But, I think just the timing of the system and what they're asking you to do, yes.
All right, man. Appreciate it. That's Stephen McGee on TexAgs. We'll be back on the other side of the break. All right, we are rolling right along on a Thursday morning. Ryan Brauninger, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. And we need to go out to the hotline as we are joined like we are every Thursday at 9 by Texas A&M head baseball coach, Jim Schlossnagle. Coach, good morning. Oh, technical difficulties. We're working to get Coach on. Coach, good morning. You there?
Can you hear me?
There.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. We're all good. Hey,
Good.
You got a boss, and I know you were a part of that committee. So just your thoughts and what you can share about the hire of Trev Alberts and any kind of behind the scenes knowledge you've got on him.
Yeah, I have no behind the scenes knowledge. I don't know Trev. I haven't had any interaction with him. The job of the committee, President Welsh was awesome. He went to all the various stakeholders, coaches, group of student athletes, donors, faculty, and I think and then we got together as a committee and formed at his direction what kind of the job description should look like, and obviously that included managing coaches and supporting head coaches and programs and giving them the best chance for success. But in this day and age, a big part of it was business experience, and he specifically was looking for someone who had a variety of experiences in running a business. Somebody I worked for one time said being an athletic director is a tough job because you're literally trying to run a business on other people's passion, which is hard to do. And we know that the finances of A&M are a lot to deal with, and this is a unique time, and we're headed for even more unique times. And so that was the goal, to set out and hire somebody who, in a perfect world, would have that level of experience, whether it be in an athletic department, in business, private business, or both. And so we went through a variety of candidates. I've heard you guys talk about it, and you've nailed it in terms of internal candidates, external candidates, people in private business, non-Power 5 athletic directors, Power 5 athletic directors. And our job was to go to President Welsh with a group of candidates, a final group of candidates that the committee members, and specifically Dave Dunlap, the chairman of the committee, felt like any one of this X number of people would do a great job at Texas A&M, and then is General Welsh's job to make a choice and make the hire, and that's exactly what happened.
All right, Coach. Well, that's really good stuff, and I think a lot of folks will be interested to hear that. And for you and your ball club now getting ready to go on the road to Florida, a lot of talk about opening SEC play, but I guess let's start with this. When you put Florida on and you start watching them on tape, is it the same old typical Florida uber-talented group, or do you see some differences maybe in some of those Kevin O'Sullivan teams?
Definitely the same most uber-talented group, for sure. Have potentially a Golden Spikes candidate, or definitely a candidate, potential winner in the first baseman pitcher, Caglione. And then Colby Shelton, big transfer for them, is having a great year. So from a position player physical standpoint, same group: right-handed hitters, left-handed hitters, power, speed, all of that. All of the above. I think where they're filtering through and trying to figure out who they are is on the mound. When you lose two, I don't think they both went in the first round. One went in the first round, and the other, maybe went in the second, third round, something like that. When you lose two front-end pitchers, that's not easy to replace. And so they moved a really good reliever in Cade Fisher to from the bullpen to the mound, and he's had some good days and some learning days. And of course, Caglione, the first baseman, is probably throwing as good as anybody, and he pitches on Sunday. So the rest of their pitching, they have some veterans, but they're also throwing a lot of really talented freshmen. So on any given day, excuse me, on any given day in this conference, we know how that can go. It can go really, really well, or it can go sideways. So they're good. You know, they're in the top 10 for a reason. And I think if you look at Florida, I'm sure you can probably look up the numbers pretty quick, but Florida probably has been the most consistent program in the country. I think they've been to either 8 or 9 super regionals in the last 10 years. You know, then you throw in a bunch of Omaha appearances, a national championship, and of course they played for the national title last year. So they know how to win. And it's going to be, you know, just like every other weekend, it's going to be a dogfight. But the Aggies are playing well too, and we'll show up and see what happens.
Yeah, to your point, I believe Florida has won more games than any other program since 2015. So, yeah, going back a decade, nobody's won more games than Kevin O'Sullivan and the Gators. But let's talk about your pitching staff a little bit. You were open in the post game against Sam Houston on Tuesday night. That it was essentially tryouts to make this cut down SEC conference roster. Can you, as you started to take inventory of what happened on Tuesday night, what were some of the things that you really liked about some of those guys that ran out from the bullpen, and even Isaac Morton as a starter?
Yeah, I thought Isaac did a great job. You know, what he's got to be able to do is he can't with 2 outs. It just can't get away from him, right? The highs are high and the lows are low. So he's attacking the strike zone and looks like a future first rounder, which I think he is. And then he'll have an at bat where it just, 4 straight balls, or it just gets away from him. And the one inning, it was 2 straight hitters like that. And so our goal going into that was to hopefully see him pitch well, which I think he did. And better than anybody, or as much as anybody, how good Sam Houston is. They're going to win a lot of games and probably win that league. So that was a good competition for him. But our goal was to get him in there, have him throw less than 50 pitches, and if it was really good, get him out so we could potentially use him in some role this weekend. So he did great. I thought Peary did great. I thought Cortez probably was the story of the night, besides Lavallette's swings and Caden Kent's overall play. But I thought, I don't know if I've said Peary did fine. And then there's some other guys in there that they're going to have to step up their game if they want to pitch. We're going to need them to pitch because the guys that we leave at home this weekend are going to have to give us good innings during the midweek games. But I felt good about it. I thought we competed well. Sam Houston, they used their 2 best relievers. Hewitt, the one kid, they used him for about 70 pitches prior to a conference weekend. So that was good competition for us. The guy was, 93, 95 with 2 good off-speed pitches. So that was great for our hitters to see before the weekend.
Coach, when you're recruiting players, and this is kind of a Caden Kent point, and there are guys that run faster than Caden. They throw the ball harder. They hit it harder. But there's something to be said for, a winning player, and I think that's how you the best describe Caden Kent. So is that a quality that you can look for in recruiting, and then how have you seen that kind of elevate Caden in that second base competition right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, it's obviously something you look for in recruiting. It's hard to tell because we get such short looks at these players, and we have to make decisions on them so fast. So it's hard. Obviously, he comes from great stock, right? And his dad's going to be a Hall of Famer. So Caden is he does a lot of things on a baseball field to help you win a game. And I think on our team right now, or any team, that's good. You can't have necessarily a team full of that in this league. You have to have guys with tools and prospects. And I'm not saying Caden doesn't, but he's learning how to become the best version of him. And what I mean by that is I just need Caden Kent to do what Caden Kent does. And sometimes players and even coaches will ask a player to be somebody that he's not, or the player will try to be somebody that he's not. Like if you put a guy in a batting practice group with Chase Lavalette, Braden Montgomery, and Gavin Grahovic, if I put Chestnut in that group, he can't try to do the things in a batting practice that those guys do. He has to do what he does. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what Caden's got to do is he's got more walks and strikeouts, which hasn't been the case in the past. His job's to get on base and play really good defense and do the things that those other guys do. And then when he, obviously when he gets in good counts and he gets a good pitch to hit, put a good swing on it, hit a low line drive, and eventually those, may carry out of the ballpark. But he's growing up as a player. We know how competitive he is. And he'll certainly, we're facing 2 left-handed starters this weekend. So if I do run him out there against the lefties, he's going to have to be able to handle those guys too. So Caden's great. I love him. And you definitely feel good with him on the field.
Yeah, give us a quick health update on the team. I got to see Ryan Targach hit right-handed. That was something that you mentioned to us earlier in the week that may be a possibility. But also Teddy Burton comes out of that game the other night. Obviously Travis Chestnut still dealing with that oblique. But just overall health of your club.
Yeah, Chestnut's down for a while, a long while, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll get him back at some point. Targach took swings from both sides of the plate yesterday in simulated game and through. So assuming he wakes up and feels good today, does that again tonight when we practice in Florida, and then feels good on Friday, I would have to think we would try to get him in there in some form, whether it be, second base, first base, or DH. So I think we're good there. Wanting and Wilson still, they're a ways away from getting them back, and we definitely miss them. That would be 2 extra lefties in the bullpen, especially I was really planning on using those guys to get Shelton and Caglione out, but we're going to have to do it different ways. We have Escher and Sadeo, but I think right now, for the most part, guys have little nicks and knacks here, but that's just part of baseball. Going into the first conference series, we're about as good a shape as you could hope for, I think.
And Teddy's just a little back inflammation?
Yeah, he had a little, back thing. I don't even know if it is a thing. He was just sore a little bit before the game, and then he took that one swing and that at bat. And if you were watching the game, you saw him kind of wince and reach back behind his hip or back, and then it just wasn't worth finishing out that game with him. He had dove down the first base line on that foul ball. So he was fine yesterday. I saw the video of everybody celebrating, and he certainly was right in the middle of it. So I just try to be as precautionary as we can, especially this time of year, because there's certainly going to come a time where, hey, buddy, you got to go. I mean, it's barring serious injury. There are things we're going to have to play through. So he should be fine, but I haven't seen him yet today.
Yeah, back-to-back walk-off victories, and we've talked about what that can do for your team. But, Coach, I wanted to talk about what it did for the fan base and just the atmospheres in Olsen Field last Sunday, and then Tuesday night was as good of a midweek atmosphere against a team not named Texas as I've ever seen in that ballpark. Just your thoughts so far on what the 12th man has done inside your ballpark.
Yeah, really. I'm just really proud. I just can't say proud of them. Just they've been awesome. We've obviously, I personally made a push on social media. We're trying to make a push for people to share their tickets. Don't just buy tickets, use your tickets. If you're not going to use your tickets, send them to somebody. I mean, send them to me. I'll make sure they get out to somebody. And then when you get to the ballpark, don't be afraid to make some noise. I don't have a problem if I hear the moans and groans or the little jabs when we don't do well. That's fine. That's part of the deal. But when we do well, make sure you stand up and cheer. And I think the 12th man, led by Section 203, had a text conversation with the guys that run that deal and said, "Hey man, I need you to help get these people 2 outs and 2 strikes. We got to get on our feet. We got to create some atmosphere here." Ideally, what you want is you want the crowd to push the team, and you want the team to motivate the crowd. You want both, right? Some places the crowd only cheers when the team does well, and then there's places where the crowd, you go to some of these places in the league, I mean, they're on their feet, they're cheering 2 outs and 2 strikes or finishing off a hitter, even when their team's down a little bit. They're kind of working together to create an atmosphere that's tough for the other team to play in. And I think Texas A&M hasn't always had that. Postseason, yes. But now we've had it in back-to-back regular season non-conference games, and it's been awesome. Crowd's been awesome. The weather's been great. That always helps. I'm glad. I think we're supposed to get a bunch of rain here this weekend, so I'm glad we're on the road. But we get back next week, and we have 4 straight games. I think Prairie View and then 3 against Mississippi State. So we're going to need them out there and fill those seats up and be as loud as they can.
Coach, good luck to you. We're looking forward to seeing your guys go this weekend.
All right, Brauning. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Take care.
That's Texas A&M head baseball coach joining us on TexAgs Radio. On the other side of the break, a little bit of an open segment before we get to Aaron Torres at the bottom of the hour. We're rolling right along on a Thursday morning. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Welcome back to TexAgs Radio. Ryan Brauninger sitting in for the vacationing David Nuno, the island boy, David Nuno. Got a little bit of an open segment here before we go to Aaron Torres at the bottom of the hour, and we'll get some stuff from the Angry Elephant News and Social Center here in a second. But a lot of the discussion this morning has surrounded, and rightly so, surrounded A&M's new hire at Athletic Director Trev Alberts. And we talked to Stephen McGee about it. We talked to Jim Schlossnagle a little bit about it. Obviously, Olin shared his opinions there in the 8 o'clock hour. Basically, what is an AD's role now? And I think it kind of is – it's a good time to talk about it because of the ever-changing world of college athletics, but it's also a good time to talk about it because of what happened on Capitol Hill this week when Nick Saban went up there and met with various members of the United States government. And if you're like me, then you know that anytime you involve the government on a project, it's only going to make it more efficient and cleaner run. But he went and met with various members of Congress and representatives there in Washington, D.C. to talk about NIL and the current state of college athletics. And listen, when you do this job that I do, or especially that Billy does, you start hearing things behind the scenes. So whenever he retired, one of the first things that we had begun to hear from our various sources was that it was very much due to the current state of college athletics and the untenability of the current model of college football. And it got me thinking, and I'm not the expert and the person that needs to be expounding on these things as fact, but it got me thinking about how do we clean this up? Where can we step in and fix this short-term and long-term? And I think in order to do that, you have to define where exactly the problem is. And most of it surrounds just the unhinged, unadulterated NIL game right now, as it currently stands, and then the transfer portal. So I've kind of taken a look at an examination of that and wanted to espouse upon where I believe the shortcomings lie and the reason why we have maybe such an issue right now. I think it's kind of twofold of why it's untenable financially, first of all. And I think it comes down to money movement patterns. So first of all, I am in favor of college athletes being compensated for revenue they generate. When you go and spend your money on tickets, concessions, food, drink, merchandise, souvenirs, 12th man towels, when you go spend your money inside Kyle Field on a fall Saturday, a lot of that is due because you're passionate about your school and the football program, but there's no doubting the kids on the team generate that revenue with their performance. Zero question. Okay? So but where the issue lies right now in the financial stability of the whole thing, I think, is that the pool that money goes to is not the pool that you're drawing the money out of from NIL. The pool that you're drawing money out of from NIL is a completely different pool of money, mostly from donors and people that are giving to the collective. It is outside of the revenue produced by the kids on, through their name, image, and likeness and stuff sold on the field, not their name, image, and likeness, but the stuff happening on game day. So it's just, I think it's definitely a different pool of money. I know there's some crossover. There's some people listening going, well, these kids get money when their jerseys are sold. I understand that. I completely understand that. But there is two different pools of money, and it's unlike anything that you see in the business world in that aspect. So that begs the question is, do college football programs or college athletic departments, should they have an owner? I know that's outlandish and even sounds ridiculous when I say it, but that's how all the professional models are churned out, right? Like they have an owner who disperses the income to the employees, which are the players, and they are putting a large financial backing into the organization, and so they have say-so in financial decisions within those organizations. I don't know. Like, again, I'm just spitballing ideas here to try to clean some of this up. But there's definitely a confliction of ideas on how to do that, and that's kind of why we're at where we are right now. It goes back to the NCAA having zero foresight or backbone to get ahead of this stuff, which everybody could see it coming a million miles down the road. That's where this whole thing started, and their complete ineffectual and inability to take action and get out ahead of this thing. And so it's led to this kind of wild, wild west of college athletics. But you just start looking at this and you're going, is there a better money movement patterns to make this thing more feasible and more tenable in the short term and in the long term? I don't think we'll ever get to a spot where college athletic departments have owners. I understand that's ridiculous, but there's got to be some sort of model where if the players are going to be paid like professional athletes, should they then be held accountable to the same things that professional athletes are held accountable to? And I'm meaning if they don't show up to class or show up to workouts, or if the market value says they're not worth what they're being paid, do they take a pay cut? Like, there's just so many avenues of this that have question marks. And right now, I don't have the answers, and clearly nobody does. This is why they're meeting about it in government offices. But you have to start trying to mix and match solutions here and there are people that are involved in college athletics, and I'm sure Trev Alberts has a lot of opinions on this and the future of college athletics. And you hear enough people talk, and I'm sure Aaron Torres will hit on it here in a little bit, but even Jim Schlossnagle talked about kind of the uncertainty of the current climate of college sports as it stands now and how it changes going forward. And you better have somebody savvy enough to navigate that at the top of your athletic department. And since there are no owners, that those athletic directors are those people. But, could you do something where, and this would help curtail the transfer portal as well, could you do something where, I was actually talking to Nick about this before the show, a college athlete can accrue as much name, image, and likeness money as they would like. However, they cannot cash in on that pool of money for 36 months until 36 months after they've arrived on campus. That would give you the opportunity to earn, like I said, as much as you want and earn more through your performance. If you play well and do all your other stuff right, you have an opportunity to increase whatever your negotiated NIL package would be. It would curtail this portal madness because there is more incentive for kids to stay in one spot for 3 years, or you start that clock over. And it would also encourage kids to graduate in 3 years if they are disgruntled and want to move elsewhere. So in the end, you're getting a little bit of the of the student back in student athlete. Again, I don't know if there are parameters or guidelines, or is this even enforceable? Is there some kind of antitrust, anti-fair market value, anti-employee rights, employee benefits that I'm missing here? I don't even know if that's legal. But again, just something that I wrote down as you try to quell or stem the tide of some of the craziness that it is college sports right now. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you were saying. I'm not the one that really should be talking about this, but definitely there needs to be a qualifier or some kind of qualifier that could, like you mentioned, you said, what was it, 30 or 3 years you said on campus would qualify you for your NIL money. I don't know if it needs to be that long. Who knows what the right number is? No one does, but I agree with you. There definitely needs to be some kind of like, hey, you play X amount of games, bam, there you go. It's there for you. But I kind of used the example earlier of like, hey, if I was coming to TexAgs, like, hey, I've never directed a show before, but I think I deserve $100,000 salary to come do it, even though I've never done it before. Like, that just seemed that wouldn't work here. Why does it work in college football? So again, I'm not the one that should be deciding these decisions, but there needs to be guardrails.
Yeah, and I do think, anytime you're investing in something, you want a return on it. And I think people's desired return differs based on the human being and what they value. There are a lot of people that if they're giving to A&M's NIL collective, their desired return is, some people may think that it's loyalty to the school. Some people is only winning games. But I do think they are coming up with more innovative ways to better spread out NIL funding in the short term. And I can't remember who it was, but I was reading a story at what school it was. It was a power football program that had some way figured out that if they could essentially round up to every dollar for stuff sold in the stadium. For instance, if you went to Kyle Field and you bought a Coke and a pretzel and it ended up being, I don't know, $12.40.
Yeah.
You could round up to $13 and that 60 cents would go toward an NIL pool.
Oh, so it's just like all these fast food places when you go there, like, would you like to round up for this charity?
Sure. And if you do that, obviously that's a minuscule amount of money individually.
But on game day,
it certainly would add up. And a lot of people, I think, would be, yeah, I'll do that. 70 cents, that's kind of out of sight, out of mind money. And so I do think that these collectives and these college football programs, college athletic departments are becoming more innovative. And it's really not the football programs or the athletic departments. It's the collectives surrounding those. Don't get that twisted. It's definitely not Mike Elko looking for ways to raise money for NIL. It's definitely the folks involved in the collectives. But I do think they're getting smart and more creative, and they're adapting every day, every week to this thing. And kudos to them, because until there are some sort of guidelines put in, it's no holds barred. But we'll get maybe Aaron Torres' thoughts on the whole thing on the other side of the break, but we definitely need to get to see where he's at on A&M Ole Miss tonight, and as we eye the bubble, closing in on March Madness and Selection Sunday. A lot more to get to on the remainder of the show. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're still efforting Aaron Torres. Hopefully we can get that connected here soon. Ryan Brauninger, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. 979-693-1150. 979-693-1150 if you would like to interact with the show. We've got Callie Gardner sitting in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We will get to her in just a second, especially if we cannot get this call connected with Aaron Torres. But to kind of go back on my point, when I was talking about owners in college football or college athletics, the owners in the NFL and in professional sports in general, they shell out a lot of money, and then they see that money come back. There's a return on their investment through revenue generation that goes back into their bottom line, and thus they can go back and take from that pool of money to go make other player acquisition, talent acquisition deals. That's just not the current module or money movement pattern of these college football NIL deals and these collectives. These collectives have money given to them, and there's no money given back so that they can make future NIL deals with players down the road. It's just chopped off of their bottom line each and every year. And I don't know how tenable that is. At some point, it's got to dry up. And it goes back to, I thought Josh Pate made a brilliant point about facilities are archaic. Facilities upgrades now are archaic. That money that would normally have gone to facilities upgrades, and what a leg up the facilities arm race was the talk of college athletics for 20, 30 years, going back to the 90s through the 2000s, was you constantly had to update your facilities to be better than your rival programs around you in your region because of how much of a leg up that was in recruiting. That's no longer. That is no longer. I just wrote a column for TexAgs, our long-form recruiting article that'll be out in a couple of weeks, about what is really important in recruiting in 2024. And you almost don't even talk about NIL because it's such of a foregone conclusion that if you don't have an effective, efficient NIL structure, you can recruit, but you're not going to recruit with the big boys. I mean, it is a prerequisite, must have, it's like an ID to get into a club. Like, you got to have it. You can't get into the club unless you've got an NIL ID card. So it's interesting. We're at a super interesting time in college athletics. Callie, do you have anything either to add, or have folks been texting in about the new AD? What do we got over there in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center?
Yeah, I think going along with kind of what you were talking about, we had a texter say guidelines by definition are not enforceable. Policies, standards, and procedures are. And I think, he kind of hit the nail on the head with that. When you think about guidelines, they're more of like a recommendation or something that's not mandatory, something that's not required. I mean, when you think about a job and you think about an employee, employees who don't follow guidelines, the odds that something's going to happen to them discipline-wise, not very high. But policies are more formalized. They're more of a requirement, something that someone can be held accountable for or held to in a standard. So
yeah, and that's a better word to use. That's what we're looking for is policy. But again, who is going to A, write the policy, and then B, enforce it? Because do you trust the people that would be writing these policies? Do you trust the people that would be enforcing it? Because we've already seen one governmental branch of college athletics completely fail, and that's the NCAA. And look at the power it wielded 10 years ago compared to now, and how quickly it kind of disintegrated in terms of its influence.
Totally. I think, I would say as of now, I don't trust the people who would be writing, much less enforcing these things. And
there's a reason why it's gone to Capitol Hill. There's a reason why Nick Saban is sitting next to Ted Cruz and talking to a committee of people about the current state of college athletics. And I don't think, again, I'm not anti getting the kids paid. What I am for is some structure to the whole thing. Because right now it's not the kid's fault. It is not the fault of the student athlete. You are worth, in a free market economy, you are worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you. Correct? The incurred risk of this whole thing lies on the schools because they're negotiating these deals. They're negotiating these deals without being totally sure what product they're going to be receiving in return. So we have kind of flipped it from normal everyday life and everyday business where you come in, you prove your value, you prove your worth, and then therefore you're rewarded for that. You're rewarded for work efficiency. You're rewarded for work utility. You're rewarded for your value with pay increases, extra paid time off, extra vacation days. That's how you're rewarded for good performance in a normal work setting. But what we've done here is completely flip it and inverse it, right? And it's similar. It's similar to the NFL, MLB, NBA model. It's similar in the fact that you are getting a lot of money up front, like you would with a signing bonus in the professional leagues, but they are drafting you in those spots. So, and there's less of an incurred risk because there's more data points on your performance as after 3 or 4 years of playing college sports. These professional organizations have a much better read and a much better feel for what you are going to be. And look how many times they miss. Look how much money they waste on bust in the draft, even with all those extra data points. And now you're asking collectives, college athletic departments to do the same thing with way less guarantees and way fewer data points coming out of high school. So I don't know. Again, I'm not the person to figure this out, but I can look at it and say there are a sundry amount of problems that, and it's so layered that it's going to take somebody that is really sharp, shrewd, and astute to go in there. Not just one person. I shouldn't have said just one person. It's going to take a group of people to sit down and come up with a structure and some policy for all this. You're not going to make everybody happy. You never will. But I just think, Callie, that if it keeps going down this road, you're going to see sports cut.
For sure.
The college athletic departments are going to go from, I don't know, was it 12 teams to 4 to 5?
Yeah.
And then what are we doing to a generation of athletes in this country who would be changing the lives for themselves and their families and their futures by just coming to school and getting a degree?
Yeah, which is what it used to be. And
right.
I mean, you mentioned earlier the signing bonus, and you're right. There's such a difference there. That's a draft. You know, you're not being given all these options and said pick your favorite. You know, like they're saying, hey, we want you to come play for us, and it's kind of this or not. Whereas with college, they're offered by all these D1 programs, and these 18-year-olds are sitting there saying, which one do I want to go play for? And now the question is, which one is going to pay me the most money?
Yeah, and if they're in the same ballpark in terms of NIL dollar amount, I think then it goes back to old school recruiting, relationships, facilities, education, future in the program, depth chart, all the stuff that we've talked about for so long. But, you know, a lot of that can be quelled with bigger NIL offers and incentives. But I said this a bunch. The professional leagues have like 30 to 32 teams with owners who are like-minded financially. Not necessarily the exact same, but they're all playing by similar financial fair play rules. You don't have anything close to that in college sports. Nothing close to it. In the NFL, you've got 30 teams with owners who don't want to ruin the market on a player. They're all kind of working together or a position. They're all kind of working to get together. And I've used this example before, but it's the old Deshaun Watson thing. The owners in the NFL got really upset with the Cleveland Browns when they gave Deshaun Watson, a very unproven but talented quarterback, a ton of guaranteed money, and thus reset the market for quarterbacks in the league. Meaning the Cleveland Browns decision was going to cost a lot of other teams a lot more money to keep their star quarterback or the quarterback that they believed in.
Yeah.
And those are 32 owners that are like-minded in general and want to play by the same financial rules and policies and guidelines.
Yeah.
College sports is not even close to that right now. You've got 60
different.
Power 5 schools with different policies in each state governing what they can and can't do in terms of NIL.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have one school that says, we desperately need a left tackle. We're going to pay that left tackle $700,000 just to come to our campus for a year. Now, every other left tackle, all 60, 70, 100 elite left tackles in the country are going to think that, hey, that's what that kid got paid, because they all talk nowadays.
Right.
These kids go to camps together. They know each other, especially if they're from the same region. That kid got $700K. I'm as good as him. I should get $700K.
Yeah.
And then the following offensive lineman, who may be 2 years younger, that goes to that same high school as the kid that got $700,000, goes, hey, like, I'm the same level of prospect that he is. When I come out, I should probably get more because time value of money and the increase. So, like, where do we stop? Where does it stop? And again, it is not the kid's fault at all.
I mean, I think it sort of has become an expectation in the short amount of time it's been around, whether that's, people looking for how much they can make or comparing, position to position of how much so-and-so made at his school. And you're right, the kids 2 years, 3 years later down the road are probably going to expect more. And I mean, you can't fault them. It's not something that it's not their fault. This is what they know now.
And also with, I'll mention the staying on campus for 36 months, Nick, what would that do to tampering and the problem that tampering's become? If you know that kid he's got to restart his NIL clock if he transfers before that 36 months, wouldn't that prevent you? Wouldn't you go, okay, it's not even worth it to try to get this kid over here? And by the time we're able to pay him, he's 21, 22 years old, and he should be in the NFL by now.
Yeah, that's a way to, I guess, put the, how transfers used to have to sit out, but now they can still go play if they transfer.
Oh,
Like
I don't think they should.
Okay,
I still think they should
still
sit out. Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's not going to be taken away, that's one way to deter the transfer without taking away the playing time.
Yeah, and I don't expect them to ever go back to the old rule where you have to sit out. Billy has said in this chair, in this studio, multiple times and said it ain't going to happen. So there's almost no point in even arguing it. And if there's no point in even arguing it, then we've got to come up with other ways to mitigate what the transfer portal has morphed into, because it's much like the NIL space, the transfer portal has become completely or almost untenable for college football programs, athletic programs in general.
Yeah, and then, I think about if you have something like the 3-year clause or whatever, how would that change things on the front end of a recruiting process of a high school kid, and how much more thought and consideration would they put into the school that they're going to choose, instead of thinking, oh, I can go here for a year, get this much money, and then go play for the school that I really want to play for.
Yeah, again, my point with that is that you could make, I don't care if you make $20 million, if you can accrue $20 million in NIL money over the course of 36 months, great, good for you. You get that money once that you've been on campus for 3 years. But it also keeps the schools from having to front that risk of essentially a signing bonus or promising a huge lump sum of money just to get the kid on campus. It mitigates that risk, and it kind of turns it into more performance, and not just performance, but an actual name, image, and likeness basis. Because guess what? The good players, they get the big NIL deals, right?
Yep.
That's the way it was. I think that was the essence of name, image, and likeness whenever it was brought about and being discussed before it was even signed into law out in California. The essence of it was, hey, these kids are generating a ton of revenue for the university. Why can't they capitalize on that? And I 100% agree with that.
Same, I do too.
But, and so maybe if you can let them accrue that amount and get it at a later date, then it genuinely becomes more of We are going to pay you for your name, image, and likeness. We're not going to pay you just to come to our school. You're going to get here. You're going to follow the protocol of what we've set up to be a good human being, good member of the community off the field, endear yourself to the fan base. And then when you play really well on Saturdays, you only increase your value for those name, image, and likeness opportunities. So, again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm trying to kill time on a radio show with a mic in front of my face and espousing ideas and pouring out ideas that I think could fix the current system. But I'm certainly not claiming to be an expert or somebody that you should even take seriously on the matter. But I do work in this arena and hear about it more so than just about everybody that's driving around their car or sitting at their office computer listening to us. I do deal with a lot, so I do see. I would tend to think that I see more of the day-to-day issues with it than just about anybody, and know more of the behind-the-scenes problems that this stuff has created. And it certainly has changed the lives of many kids and families to their benefit. But if we want it to continue to be a really good and positive thing, we got to clean it up. We have to clean it up. All right, we're late for a break. Let's get to a break. When we come back, very, very short segment before the 10 o'clock hour, we'll talk Aggie basketball with Logan Lee. Aggies and Rebels coming up tonight from the SEC Tournament. You listen to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, real quick, very quick segment to close the hour. We're going to go over to Callie Garner in the News and Socials, Aggie Elephant News and Social Center. All right, for those of you that are tired of me tap dancing on air, I've got a guest now. I thank God that Logan has shown up. Logan Lee, former Texas A&M basketball player and former TexAgs employee until Billy got tired of him and fired him for, I can't remember what exactly he fired you for.
He fired me for talking to you.
Oh, yeah.
I had too much faith in what you were doing, and he said, "No, we got the wrong guy here."
Ryan Brauninger in the host chair. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. Don't forget, if you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150 on the Angry Elephant. And Callie's in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, but 979-693-1150 to interact with the show. Logan, Aggies and Rebels tonight at 6 o'clock from Bridgestone Arena.
Hold on, before we get into that.
Go ahead.
Joe Jones, Coach of the Year.
Your guy.
My guy.
Walked in here on a live stream one time and started eating all of our food.
Everything.
It was awesome.
Didn't hesitate.
What an electric human.
Won Coach of the Year. Then you have Aquanisha Franklin. She won Coach of the Year.
Lamar, right?
Lamar. Mm-hmm. She got Coach of the Year. I don't know if you saw SFA and Kyle Keller last night.
I did not. I was watching
There's
my alma mater.
There's 11.2 seconds left, and SFA gets a steal, takes it down. It's a tie ball game. Takes it down the length of the court, turns it over. Austin Peay takes it back the other way. It's a 2-on-1. Big man goes up for a two-handed dunk, and SFA comes with a block, blocks the dunk, recovers the ball.
Like chase down block?
Well, they were running side by side.
Oh, okay.
Faced him up. Just said, I'm better than you.
Okay.
Gets the block. There's about 5 seconds left. Recovers the ball. Kicks it up the court. They throw a pass about half the distance of the court. There's not enough time left. The pass is high. The kid jumps up, catches it in midair, and shoots it without coming down and makes a three. SFA wins.
I did not see that. How did I not see this? Now I need that clip.
It is fantastic.
That sounds incredible.
March Madness.
You're right. So is that good juju for A&M tonight? All those former Aggies have.
It's got to be, right?
I would think so.
It's got to be.
But does it have to be? Like, what I'm saying is,
yes, it has to be.
Must win.
It's a must win. If they lose, they might as well go home.
Now, are you still on this? They need to win 2 to get in?
If they win 2, they're in. If they win 1, I think they're going to be sweating bullets.
Man,
they can still get in. I still think there's a good chance they get in.
There's some good metrics. Those quad 1 and quad 2 wins typically, historically, have carried a lot of weight.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. But the quad 3 and quad 4 losses?
Yeah, if you don't want to be in this scenario.
That's shooting bullet holes in your boat.
Yeah, I know. You're right. If you want to be in the tournament, don't lose twice to Arkansas. Don't lose to Vanderbilt.
Don't lose to Vanderbilt.
Don't lose to LSU to start the homes. Dude, I watched Arkansas and Vanderbilt last night, and I'm sitting there going, how did you lose to either one of these teams, much less Arkansas twice? They were bad basketball teams.
Okay, the other game I saw, I don't even know who Missouri was playing.
Georgia.
I turned it off after they had 16 minutes and 58 seconds on the clock. And I turned it off because Missouri hadn't scored yet.
Mizzou pulled a Melvin Watkins.
Yeah, 0-19.
Yes.
0-19.
In conference play. Again, my takeaway from day one of the SEC tournament is I could not believe that A&M lost to Arkansas in Vanderbilt.
Which, again, and that's why I say if they beat Ole Miss and then they play Kentucky well, I still think they're sweating bullets. It's.
Hey, how old's the Mannion kid at Vanderbilt? Because if he's not a senior.
The which one?
Mannion? Dude, he was a baller.
Mignon.
I'm just wondering if he's not a senior.
Those teams are trash. I don't know.
No, you kidding? You didn't watch that. I mean, he was the only player where I'm going, yeah, this guy can really play. Let me see if I can find out because he would be a transfer portal guy. I'd like to see.
So wait, hold on. So
fifth year.
Did he look good just because everybody on the court was bad?
No, he's a real player, dude.
No, those two teams are horrible.
I'm not a basketball guy, but he's the guy that he beat A&M with the game winner. But
yeah, you're not a basketball guy because you would. I told myself I wasn't going to bring it up, but you would have better clock management and better awareness.
You're right.
When it comes
You're
baseball,
right.
You can play 48 hours straight and score 2 runs and think that it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
You're right, but also as a baseball player, we don't run from accountability, so I don't mind.
Whoa!
It's okay.
Who's running from accountability?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Hold on.
Baseball guys don't run from accountability.
You can't just throw that out and say.
I mean, we're salt of the earth kind of people. Okay.
Oh, and basketball is it?
Well,
hold on.
You're a little bit more fickle, so
Oh, easy now.
If you're late to the hydrotherapy, I'm sure Katie doesn't tell you.
Or cryotherapy. I don't know. Either one.
Both involve water.
Either
right?
one. No.
Cryo's like it's cold air. It's got water in it.
No.
Oh, well.
What?
I don't know.
What are we talking about here?
We're supposed to be talking about basketball.
Okay.
Anyway.
March Madness. It's here.
I think it's going to be – A&M's only a 4.5-point favorite tonight. And I think that has more to do with the turnaround of playing the same team twice. And A&M was really good against Ole Miss in Oxford. But I also
smacked them.
And I thought Ole Miss was poor. It can be both, but I thought that was as good as A&M had played. Even in their late season run of form, I thought that was the best game they'd played. But I think that line is tight because there's some uncertainty about playing a team back-to-back that close.
No, I think the line is tight because no one knows which A&M team is going to show up. I mean, the Aggies have done a good job the last 4 games. Ole Miss has not. But
they got 20 wins. I couldn't believe they got 20 wins this year. I think they fattened up early, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think they're like A&M. They can play with anybody on any given night, but they can look really bad and get the shoes knocked off them real quick.
Well, it's interesting because Olin and I were talking about this recent run of those 4 games and Manny's insertion. And I don't know this. This is just my really untrained eye watching A&M basketball over the last couple of weeks. But, they chart plus minuses when who's on the floor. And it seems like to me that when they go Boots, Wade, Manny, Solo, and Anderson, that's their most athletic 5, and they're very much in the green when those 5 are on the floor. And it kind of – I also think that there's been a jump in Solo's play that kind of coalesces with what Manny has done.
I completely agree with that. Manny, we've been waiting to see Manny like this for 2 years now. I don't think anybody expected that as a freshman. But sophomore year, we expected to see a jump. This past year, we expected to see a jump, and it just hadn't showed up. But with his emergence in the last 4 or 5 games, I think you can see how the staff has been working with him throughout the season, and they haven't given up on him. Because a player just doesn't find his way with 4 games left in the year.
Do you think that they gave him this increased responsibility on the floor and it has skyrocketed his confidence and that's helped the light kind of go on for him?
Yeah, but I also think they've game planned better. If you look at his success is coming from having a set play, not just coming off a ball screen and pounding the rock until he figures out how to get a shot up. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's actually making good passes. He's making good decisions. I don't know what his turnover rate is, but I know it's less than what it was. He's not turning the ball over, and he's not taking erratic shots that – see, here's the thing. Buzz all year long has said, Wade's not taking bad shots. Those are good shots for this team because everybody expects him to take those shots, and so that's why they crash the boards. Well, when Manny was taking those shots, no one expected him to take those shots. So it came unexpected, and they couldn't get rebounds if he missed those shots. But now he's more controlled. I don't think he's playing as fast. He's slowed it down a little, which is good for him because he's so physical. If you look at the guys that play slow, they're usually stronger because they can take the hits, they can create the contact, they can bump, and then they can make decisions. Manny is built for that.
He reminds me of like a one-cut running back.
Yeah.
Like if you give him a clear path to the rack, he can go get it as good as anybody. And he attacks the rim, and he can create off of that. Now, but he's not going to create off the dribble laterally like Wade and even Boots can.
He's not if you want to make 2 comparisons, he's not a Barry Sanders who doesn't have an O-line and just has to go create for himself.
Or like Derrick Henry.
Yeah, you hit a hole and you go. If there's a space there, or you take a hit, that first hit, you get through it and then you go. Mm-hmm. But he's not a guy that is back and forth. I'm gonna have left to right crossover, spin move to come back, step back. That's not his.
So would you say that the offense has changed with Manny kind of bringing the ball up to be a more downhill type of offense, where I think it was more perimeter based with Wade and Boots handling it at the top?
Yeah, I think it gives more opportunity, and it stretches the defense a little to give Boots the opportunity to get in the paint without having to go around 3 other defenders. Mm-hmm. People have to keep their eye on Manny. They have to keep their eye on Wade. And with Wade now running off screens on the baseline, that extends the defense.
Yeah, he's fast. Like
absolutely.
His play, I don't know what he runs. I don't know how y'all track it in basketball. I mean, I know quickness is the big thing, but like he runs away from people coming off ball screens.
Absolutely. Even with the ball in his hands, he's leaving people.
Yeah.
Like he's super fast, and that's why, I guarantee you, every opponent gets so frustrated when he has the ball and he takes off real quick and then he stops right in front of them and they run into him and they get a foul.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it, people are thinking, why do they keep running into him? Why? And they know he's going to do it because he's so dang fast. If you don't take that that first step to try to catch up to him, you're going to lose him. So you have to take that, and then he stops all of a sudden, and then they run into him.
Who's the guy you're watching tonight? Obviously, they all need to continue to play the same way they had last couple weeks. Who's the guy tonight that you got your eye on that could kind of spur them on to victory if he has a good night?
I mean, and I'm gonna say Wade, but not in the manner that you think. I don't think he needs to go out and score 30, 35 points. I think Wade needs to continue to play the way he's been playing, where he can score 18, maybe even 15 to 22 points, but he's knocking down free throws because he's attacking the basket. He's making those extra passes, which he has been making those extra passes. So if he can continue to do that, I think he changes the game infinitely for Texas A&M.
You know, I think to go along with this new look offense, it has allowed the defense to play at a little bit higher level. Now, they still give up open looks from three, but I do think that they're getting hands closer to the shooters than they have been because it's so much more of an athletic group that's running on there.
Yeah, in years past, defense has created offense for Texas A&M. I think this year, and whether it is they're not as mentally tough or maybe they're not as skilled at every single position, their offense has predicated their defense. And so it's yes, if they're having a good offensive game, I think their defensive game gets a lot better because that margin of error grows. You know, right now their margin of error is real small. But they make a couple of shots, they spread the floor a little, and all of a sudden they can attack on defense instead of just trying to react.
Who's the sixth man on this team right as it stands right now? If those are your five, if you believe that Manny, Boots, Wade, Andy, and Solo are your best five, who's the sixth man?
I would like it to be Henry.
I think so too.
I would like it to be Coleman.
He's different than all those other guys.
Exactly. And you know, you put Jason there and all of a sudden the roster looks similar and the talent level is similar. If you put Coleman in there, you got a big body in. I mean, you've got some muscle in there.
He's going to have productive men. If this team is A, going to get in, and B, make some noise.
If they're going to win.
Yeah, if they're going to win games from now to, he's going to have to be productive minutes.
Because he's the only one that can fill those spots. And look, everybody knows he doesn't play great offensively when he's got a taller, more athletic guy defending him. And that's going to happen when you're in the SEC, especially with his position and the size that this roster has for A&M. Those taller, more athletic guys are going to be guarding Coleman. So you don't expect a ton of offensive production outside of offensive rebounding and putbacks.
I agree.
And that's what you get. But on defense, it changes. He fills up the paint a little more. Even though he's one of the larger guys, the bigger guys on A&M's roster, he can still guard on the perimeter. So you don't have to switch your defense up a ton.
You're right. But I think his minutes are super important now. Wildens Levesque's minutes, because every possession's important, but you can't just like go through a game and go, okay, if I'm going to get 4 minutes from Wildens and then 5 minutes from Hef throughout the course of a game, and maybe 8 or 9, 10 from Henry and another 8, 9, 10 from Jace, those are vitally important minutes now at this point, at this stage of the year.
Yeah, I think if you put Levesque on the floor for 5 or 6 minutes and they're good 5 or 6 minutes, that's fantastic.
Yep.
If you put Hefner on the floor for 4 to 5 minutes and he does well, then you're doing great. Jace Carter, I like his rebounding. I'm okay with his defense.
He'd be a better shooter.
Man,
it looks good coming off.
It baffles me. His form is fantastic.
Yeah.
Every time he shoots the ball, I want to put my hands in the air like it's going in.
Yeah.
Just on the way it looks. He just hasn't made shots. I mean, he's shooting, 20, 23, 24%?
Yeah. It's crazy, too, because there's some level of me that believes that if he was able to find the confidence that Manny's got now. Manny wasn't a great shooter.
No.
And aesthetically, like you said, it looks better coming off of Jace's hand. But whatever Manny has found in terms of his confidence, a confident shooter is a good shooter. And I just don't know that Jace has like ever settled in and really found his confidence. There's something to be said. You know this as well as I do for college athletes when they're coming into a higher level. I went to McNeese from a junior college. I see it in baseball a lot. There is a period, and it can be 2 weeks, it can be 2 months, it can be a year, where you're going, do I belong?
Yep.
But once that that goes off, and your light bulb goes off, and you say, all right, yeah, I'm good here. I can do this. It changes you.
But it's not necessarily do I belong. I mean,
or can I do this?
Where do I belong? Yeah. How do I fit in? Like, and especially with Buzz's style. It's not a matter of am I good enough. It's a matter of what role do I fill? Mm-hmm. How do because you got to think. Look at the roster. They're all 6 foot to 6'4". They're athletic. They can jump.
And maybe that's because
all of them
going into the year. It was the roles were you play around Wade in boots, and as the season has progressed and the team has matured, you're going. We need more definition than that. They had to find more definition than that because when they were lying, that was, I think, one of the key reasons for that 5-game losing streak was because that was their identity.
Read and react to whatever those two are doing.
Yep.
And instead of reading and reacting to them, now they're playing alongside of them in tandem, and it's working. And you can see there's a better flow to the offense.
And credit to Buzz and his staff for making the move to put, because that was a bold move when a bold move had to be made, and not just a bold move, one that worked.
Absolutely,
it had to be made, and they got it right because this is the best basketball they've played since probably late November, early December, and it by far the most entertaining brand of basketball they've played throughout the course of the SEC schedule. I was on the baseball call during that game in Oxford, but we had it on the TV at Olson. Right behind us in the booth. And so I was constantly turning around and I'm sitting there talking. It was Will Johnson. I'm going, man, like they're getting up and down the floor. They're aggressive. This is fun to watch.
It looked good. It was an enjoyable game.
Yeah.
From start to finish. There wasn't a lull in there where you just kind of sit back and say, what are we doing here?
I know.
Like it wasn't that.
But they've got to be, let's do this. Can you come back for one more?
Yeah.
We'll do one more quick one. I want to talk about obviously A&M's chances with the bubble, but just college basketball in general, because we're going into this March Madness tournament, and I don't know who the best team in the country is.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place for us as spectators to be. On the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Logan Lee. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. right, head toward the bottom of the hour on the Zone. 11:50. I'm Ryan Brauninger, sitting in the host chair for the next couple of days for David Nuno. On vacation with Billy Lucci. Have you seen the photo that he and Billy posted from Galveston Island?
I haven't.
Oh,
please.
Nick, can you please pop that up? Just
there it is.
Just a couple of island boys.
There it is. That is.
David told me he was doing a cut. So he's been watching his calories. Billy
didn't tell me he was doing a cut, and he also didn't tell me he was painting his nails.
It's okay. Billy's very eccentric these days. He just had a big birthday, so you got to let him do what he wants. Anyway,
don't let's not talk. Whoa, now.
Aggies and Rebels tonight.
Thank you.
6 o'clock from Bridgestone Arena to open the SEC tournament. I almost called you Olin because we were talking about Olin during the break.
Hey, Olin's up there.
He is up there.
Olin's in Nashville.
But Logan, who's the best team entering the tournament? Best team in the country. Tell me that. I mean, I'm starting to convince myself that it's University of Houston.
It is. I think it is.
Do you?
And the only reason I do think it is because they have the best backcourt combination.
When I watch their games, they're very balanced.
All the country.
I do agree with that. But they're just very balanced. They beat you in so many different ways. They can get in a slugfest. They can get in a shootout. And, they're fine. They're well-equipped to do either.
Well, that's the thing. That guard combo, they can score buckets, but they're going to get up in your stuff on defense, and they're going to make it hard for the other team, and that's where it starts. I mean, if you have a guard that isn't afraid, that's physical, that isn't afraid to be on an island and just takes that challenge, and that's what starts the defensive possession, everybody behind him has to fall in line.
Yep.
And that's what they do. They can play it, like you said, they can play an ugly game and win. They can play a fast-paced game and win. It doesn't matter the style right now. I mean, anybody that beats Kansas by 30, I don't care how good Kansas is or how bad Kansas is in a year. You beat Kansas by 30.
They just got trounced by Cincinnati last night, though, didn't they?
I don't know what the final score was.
16, wasn't it, Callie? 16 or 18 points?
I think it was 20.
They got beat up by just a pretty good Cincinnati team. I think that Kansas team's got big time boom or bust potential. That. Oh, they're either losing first weekend or first day, or they're going to make a run to the Elite Eight.
I never really go against Kansas because Bill Self is a really good coach, and he assembles his roster the way for longevity for the tournament. They usually do a good job. Now they don't do now. Kansas has definitely lost their fair share of first and second round games. They're not. It's not
happen when you go to the tournament 9 out of every 10 years.
Yeah, but it's not like Izzo and Michigan State where you just don't bet against them.
Right.
They're going to win two games in the same tournament.
Way, I want to say this. The other team that I always want to buy stock in, and I almost did it again this year, and they always disappoint me, Purdue.
I never buy stock in Purdue.
I don't know why. I watched them play, and they've got Zach Edey, and I'm like, dude, who's going to guard that guy in crunch time in a tournament game? I just felt like in a lot of my brackets over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I go, hey, man, Purdue, I think Purdue can make a run. And I'm always going.
How's your bracket ended up in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years?
That's what I'm saying. But they were I'm sitting there looking at the teams that I think could be the best in the country going into the tournament, and like you mentioned with U of H, if they got into a street fight with U of H, I think Purdue's got no chance there.
Absolutely not.
I think U of H should just smother them.
Absolutely. I'm not. I don't think U of H is worried about Purdue. Now,
UConn.
How about former Aggie Hassan Diarra, 6th man of the year in the conference? They're balling out. But here's the thing: how many different number ones have there been this season?
Well, it's been a pretty good year for parity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Kansas was the number 1.
Yeah.
And now they were 6th in the Big 12. That's tough in itself.
You think that league's very good?
Yes.
You think the Big 12's legitimately very good? Good enough to be getting Texas and Texas Tech locked into the tournament field? Okay.
Yes. I think the Big 12, I mean, they might be the best basketball conference. It's an arguable point.
Yeah.
You can argue it.
I've watched some of their games, and like, I actually think Baylor's pretty good. Like, I know they haven't played.
We don't say that on this show.
Sorry,
you can say that, not when I'm here, but
Okay.
you can say that.
But I guess when I'm looking and comparing, like, what SEC team do you think has the best chance to go the furthest? Because I get big Kansas vibes off of Tennessee. Tennessee can defend. Like, Ziegler can defend.
I think Tennessee. I think Kentucky has the firepower to do it, and they're young, so they really don't know. But their defense isn't great.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Alabama has
Alabama.
has the possibility to make some waves. I think Florida. I think they were
ready to fire that guy in late December, early January.
I think Florida is, for some, and I couldn't even tell you why. I just think they're a solid team. They do a bunch of the little things. When I was looking at them before A&M played them, just going through their team and looking at what they had at the time, they're balanced.
Mm-hmm. I thought that when A&M played them.
It's just I don't know. I don't know.
That was back when I thought the A&M team would be very different, though, too.
I mean, maybe
that's
what it is too, because I was thinking A&M is still going to skyrocket. They're going to do well, and they've
Florida was in trouble.
Yeah, and Florida's been playing well, but man, I don't know when it comes to. I'm kind of tempted to say Gonzaga's going to go deep, because every time they're like a number one, they make it, but you never have confidence that they're going to win it all. Now that no one's really been talking about them, and they've got Nebhard, and they've got good guard play. They've got a couple of guys that can stretch the floor. I mean, why not this year?
They got a coach that's done it.
They've got a coach that is
elite.
I mean, he's a staple in the tournament.
Right. And he's done it at a school that is in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific Northwest, continues to get.
But it's a different feel for them when you go in as a number one, but everybody's got some doubts because you're not in a big conference, and they're you beat up on your conference, but that conference isn't very good. There's a difference going in and people expecting you and all eyes to be on you. Say, can they play with the big boys, because they haven't played in the SEC or the Big 12 or the ACC, and now it's more of a, what are they going to do this year?
All right, last thing before I let you go. Feet to the fire. Does A&M win tonight?
Yes.
And do they get into the tournament?
Yes, they win tonight. Yes, they get into the tournament.
There you go.
And I think, like I said, if they lose to Kentucky in the second game, they're going to be sweating bullets, but I still think they get in. Now they can't get blown out by Kentucky, but I think that if they win tonight, when they win tonight, and they play Kentucky, I think they get in, and there's probably a 65-35 chance that they do.
I'm way more bullish now on them getting in with a win tonight than I was maybe a week and a half ago, without question. The more I look at some of these metrics and what has historically mattered to the committee, now, and there are certainly a sect of Aggies that are listening going, well, yeah, we won all these games in the tournament the last 2 years, SEC tournament, and didn't make a hill of beans.
But they're not wrong.
No, they're not.
They're not wrong.
But those teams also, the amount of quad 1 and quad 2 wins, like that has that has been a very important factor in choosing teams historically. But man, I appreciate you coming in for a couple of segments.
Absolutely.
Go work on Q and jump shot.
Good time management now. That's very
right
good.
on time.
Very, very good time management.
All right, that's Logan Lee joining us for Cock Aggie Basketball. When we come back, the fan show to wrap up the Thursday edition of our program. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio. We are joined by The Fan Show, presented by Girard Construction, as we are every Thursday. Today I've got Royal May and Mr. Matt Brauning, Girard Construction. It's TexAgs Radio, as I said, presented by Girard Construction, custom home builders for the Brazos Valley since 2002. They don't just build homes.
They build relationships.
Learn more at girard-construction.com.
Morning,
Bronny. Morning.
/construction.
I'm sweaty from having a tap dance through that 9 o'clock hour. So thankful that Logan showed up and now that you guys are here.
You did good. You had McGee on. He was good.
Sort of. He was okay.
You got your workout in? The banter with you and Logan was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
thought it was hilarious.
But we've talked a lot about, obviously, Trev Alberts being hired, the current state of what college sports is. And we go over that constantly. But we'll start with what's on your mind, and I'm sure basketball may be at the forefront for either one of you. Matt, start us off.
Well, I really, honestly, baseball is still at the forefront of my mind.
Well, welcome to my world.
I know it, man. It's been fun. I'll let Roy cover basketball, even though basketball is normally the sport that I follow more closely even than baseball. But man alive, it's like they got to, you're going through that Rhode Island series and you're 50-0. You're up 7-0. And it's like they got bored and like, let's have some fun with this. Let's take it all the way down. Let's get some Olsen magic. And to win both those games walk-off style in a row, it was just a blast to watch. And you're looking at this team and like, where's the weakness in that lineup?
Yeah, you can. If you're going to do anything with baseball right now, it's nitpicking because you have to be when somebody's 17-0.
It's ridiculous. Like, what are we going to complain about? There's nothing for us to complain about.
Well, we're Ags. We'll find something.
Oh yeah,
believe me, the live threads blow up whenever the other team scores runs and the games get close.
It was just
a snooze fest when A&M's up 7-0.
Yeah. I left, so Rhode Island, I watched, we were up 7-0, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go run errands. I go run errands, go to town, come back. My wife's like, it's tied in the ninth, and I'm like, nuh-uh. And I had to go and watch it. I was like, I could not believe they'd come back, and then to sit there and watch it was against Sam, but it's like. It's like I still knew we were going to win that game.
This team's a lot of fun, Roy.
They really are.
Well, I told Zane, we saw him right before we came in. So I went to my first game of the year on Tuesday. I went to the Sam game, which
is a great atmosphere.
Unbelievable crowd. Unbelievable.
I love spring break.
And I'm there, and we're undefeated. So I go to the ballpark, go to see the game, and things started blowing up. I'm like, I got to go. So I went home to watch the rest of the game on TV to make sure that we win.
I'll tell Schloss you sacrificed for that.
That's my bad, man. My bad for showing up.
It looked good early on Tuesday night.
It did, yeah. And
Jace hits a ball to about Hearn.
The moon, yeah. And Grahovic just absolutely uncorked on that one to left center. But, baseball is on my mind. Basketball, obviously, because it's still hanging in the balance, right? It really is. So there's still work to be done. I think you got
not to cut you off, but Joe Lenardi's he just put out a latest projection, has A&M in with a win tonight.
Yeah. So I think we all said you win 2 and you're in. If you beat Kentucky again, because the way and the Calipari teams, right? They stink early and then they just start to out talent and gel. All these talent they just put together, he just throws them on the floor and just says go play basketball, and then they learn how to play with each other throughout the season. And Kentucky's always humming by the time the tournament comes. But and I'm just saying, I think I tweeted this like last week, like my Diamonds are an Aggie's best friend, because let's not discount what's happening over at Davis Diamond as well. Whether 23-2, Emily Kennedy, National Pitcher of the Week, along with Ryan Prager. Brooke Vestal she's finally showing kind of what we were hoping she would be. The Trinity Cannon's turned the corner and is really starting to mash the ball. So I'm like, the spring sports are just so awesome right now. Golf is doing well. Like, it's such a great time right now in Aggie land.
It was fun. It was fun Saturday. I had basketball on one TV and baseball on the other. To be able to sit and watch both, and both of them be nice, big, comfortable wins is super fun to do. You get to take a little nap in between. It was nice. It was a fun weekend from it. I didn't really, but I could have. But it was just a fun weekend as a fan. To sit and watch both those teams win big. And so for the baseball team to be 17-0 and just be unbelievably good, and the basketball team to still have opportunities, it does make
it's a legitimate shot. It's not like a hope and prayer.
It does make you go back to man, if you just beat Vanderbilt or Arkansas, either one of those games, we're probably in already.
I told this to Logan. I watched Vanderbilt and Arkansas yesterday, the entirety of it. It was putrid basketball.
That's about as bad as it gets.
It's
and
bad.
I could not believe
Did you lose a bet?
No, if I know that I'm going to have to come in and host a radio show, I like to intake as much as I can.
That's fair.
That's fair.
For
It's a good
just
idea.
points if I've got to kill time. And I had to, like I said, I was dog and pony show tap dancing up here for a while today trying to kill some time. But what I want to go back to where you're at on Trev Alberts, because I'm not lumping you guys in with all fans, but I do think that it is a natural reaction for people to just go off their gut visceral when they hear the name. When they heard Mike Elko, there were a lot of people that went, I don't know, that's not real. I'm a little underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And look what he's done since he's gotten here. So just like with coaching hires, you do not know. You can say you know.
Oh, no.
But the fact of the matter is you don't.
It's not like coaching hires. It's worse. Nobody knows anything about ADs. And to think that you do outside of maybe it's like I would ask any fan to name off the top 10 ADs in the country right now. And they'd maybe get to 3. All right. So, and that's including the ones that, the one that left. So,
Yeah.
And so I'm in a, like, it's kind of with football. Like I'm just in a prove it thing, right?
Yep.
Like I'm not going to be positive, I'm not going to be negative about the guy. I see what he did at Nebraska. I don't follow ADs enough. If he fully understands NIL and the power that that really has now in sports, and he knows how to integrate it properly, and he can function properly with the 12th man foundation and get everything on exactly the level that it needs to be, then he's done his job. I mean, that's it.
And I'm like McGee was this morning. I don't know what the AD really does. I mean, as a fan, we know they make hires, and we do know that's what we as fans base their success on. Like we go back and look at Bjork's career here. I mean, he didn't hire Jimbo, but he hired Schloss. He hired, he made some good hires. Now, of course, I think
Hired Trish, hired Joni.
I think Schloss was a no-brainer. I think anybody would have hired him. But so we look at it from that standpoint. But from my standpoint, like I have to go, well, how much of a role does the AD play in, for example, the new facilities being built across the street? What kind of role will they play in the new baseball stadium getting built? What is their role? I don't know enough about what they actually do as a fan to really be like, this is a good hire or bad hire. I don't know, but I'd like to say I trust the powers that be.
Well, don't you trust the people on the committee?
That's the thing. I mean,
don't you trust Joni Taylor?
Yes.
Don't you trust Jim Schlossnagle?
I do. Those I do. I do.
And General Welsh, right? The president. I mean, and if
he's gotten rave reviews from all the coaches that were working with him.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard him speak, or I would implore you to do so. My dad, they had the Soul Ross reunion last weekend. They came up and he was the keynote speaker. And my dad was blown away. And my dad can be a real stooge about people. And he was, look, he's an old grumpy old retired Army colonel, Vietnam vet guy. That's who my dad is, right? And so you have got to impress him for his beloved alma mater. And he's just over the moon about General Welsh. And so he says, he's the second coming of Gates.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like the people on the committee, if they made the decision, I mean, I don't know anything about ADs, man.
That committee of the names that are on it does inspire some hope, some confidence. Yeah, because again, we can always go back to, A&M. We don't always make the best hires. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. We've made some mistakes in the past, but those are some really good names, some really high-end coaches, and some high-end people that I'm hoping. I'm sure they did the research, so we took our time. Didn't have to rush through the hire like we felt like we had to for football, for example. Even though I still think we got the right hire there, I truly do.
The second time,
yeah, this time. I thought
that was a point that McGee. He kind of glossed over, but what he was saying was that when you make these big time hires, there are people above the athletic director, and that was like the perfect example is what happened in the very short-lived Mark Stoops era.
Mm-hmm.
Like that decision, I think Mark Stoops was made at one level, and then the decision to undo it was made at a little bit higher
Trumped
level.
elsewhere.
And part of you kind of wants, wonders, or it could be a fly on the wall in these meetings that we're never going to be privy to, and they'll never release what the conversations that go on behind. But when he
and they shouldn't.
Well, no, 100%. No, yeah, I don't want us.
We don't deserve it.
Nobody should be that transparent. That's insane.
There are people out there that just won't get it. Let me promise.
But my thing is, you wonder that when that all occurred, when did Bjork go? Right? When how did this all shake out? Was he told feel free to shop around? Yeah. We're not going to can you, but maybe feel free to kind of put some feelers out there if you'd like. So you kind of wonder, was that just and you can't say last straw because again, like he's made some good hires. You got Schloss, you got Joni, you got Trisha over softball.
I like Jamie Morrison.
Yeah. So the hires have been great, but the proof's in the pudding. And I think ADs basically they need to raise money and figure out the NIL. Like that's what I think an AD's role is in today's college sports landscape.
I think that's part of it, a huge part of it, without a question. And I think the way to dumb it down is you say they need to do everything in their power to make it possible that the coach can coach their team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And honestly, I know this sounds crazy, but to leave your alma mater, to leave,
in Nebraska of all places, like Cornhuskers are diehards.
They're devastated today.
Yeah, and it's a unique. They have a unique fan base like us. I mean, they've got so they're one of those. So for him to leave there, maybe I'm hoping. My hope is obviously I'm an eternal optimist, but my hope is that he sees something here that. Wow, hey, I can go there and do some really amazing things. And I'm really I'm hoping that's kind of what it was.
All right, on the other side of the break, we'll close the show, get your thoughts about tonight. Big one on the court there at 6 o'clock, Bridgestone Arena, Aggies and Ole Miss. Like I said, we'll close the show with the fanboys on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, it's time to end the day on TexAgs Radio with Double Days. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150 will hook you up with a choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or one large topping pizza from Double Dave's. Serving Aggie Land since 1984, serving up your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni pepperoni rolls with reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. Roy,
Get the fresh meat taste to put a smile on your face.
Some of the local jingles here I'm a fan of.
Yeah, well, yeah, whether you're not, they're stuck.
Right, exactly. And they
They're
did their
effective.
job.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
effective. Basketball tonight. Obviously, don't answer this with, I want to see a win.
Yeah.
That's a prerequisite. They have to win
they have to
win.
to continue their season. What do you want to see in terms of how they go about doing it?
Well, so y'all were talking a little bit about Manny, and this was kind of how I saw, with Manny really taking form, just kind of out of the blue, right? And my thoughts on this, and I could be completely wrong, which occurs frequently. I felt like we saw Manny no longer playing in Buzz's system. Buzz put Manny out there and said, hey, just go play basketball. Like, just go play like you play. You know what? Just go do your thing. And when Manny does his thing, y'all were talking about, he's a little bullish, right? He's a real downhill runner. But when Manny is allowed just to kind of go out and play his game, and we're not asking him to be a ball handler out on the perimeter and go lateral like you were talking about, when he can just go downhill, Manny is a real asset to this team. And so what I want to see is a continuation of him. I need to see a little bit more from Henry Coleman. But if those two can do it, we know what Boots and Wade can do, and then your fifth, your swing, whether it's Hefner or
I really like the way Solo's played.
Solo. I mean, you have Solo, you have Garcia. So, those guys continue to give you amazing efforts. They're great on the boards. They're the keys to everything. But when you have that third swing and you bring in a small, you bring in a shooter, I would love to see Manny continue kind of what he's doing as long as he can keep within himself, because sometimes he does get a little rambunctious with it, right? And it comes with the turf, right? So I want to see Manny be integral, and I need to see a little bit more out of Henry.
Yeah, my thing is when Manny plays like he did against Ole Miss, when Boots plays like he has, how he started to play later in the season, Wade doesn't have to do everything. If he's not asked to be Superman, then he actually like the whole flow is better. I mean, he can still be Superman, and like Logan said earlier, I'd love to see him attack the basket, get to the line, do the smart, savvy, scrappy plays that he does. He's one of the best when he's coming up court and he just stops and somebody runs into him from behind.
He's
picks up
super
fouls,
smart basketball player.
Do that sort of stuff where
Real
where he doesn't have to jack up contested threes the whole game. I mean, do that sort of thing. Play our game. Let Solo and Garcia just get all the offensive boards they possibly can. Just keep going with that. And then Henry Coleman, be the Henry Coleman that we were hoping he would be in the beginning of the year, and who he was. Actually, who he played, he was really good in non-conference. As soon as conference started, and he it seems he struggles against.
Well, he picked up a nick, and so I know he's been playing hurt, but I need him to play big.
If he can play big, then we should be able to roll.
Don't you think this team's perfect comfort zone is controlled chaos? Because they walk a fine line between chaos and controlled chaos, and even on the other side of that, too much structure.
Yep.
So finding that right balance, and maybe that has been the insertion of Manny, where you say, attack the rim, we'll play off of that, instead of saying, okay, we're going to go down here, not really have a plan, but Boots and Wade are going to dribble around the perimeter until there's 5 left on the shot clock.
That's the worst plan on the planet.
Right, but so chaotic is okay if it's controlled with this club.
Well, and chaotic is just like you said, controlled chaos. When they can play off of each other and they don't have to run everything through Wade and then secondary through Boots. When Manny can play like that, or Coleman, or even if Jace were to step up, don't make Boots and Wade have to score 65 to win. Between the two of them. So I think. It's the third, kind of the tertiary players are big for this team to play as a whole.
I've been asking everybody all morning to put your feet to the fire. Do they win tonight? Do they get into the tournament?
They win tonight. They win tonight. I mean, again, the tournament. We remember 2 years ago. We were on fire through the tournament. We played so well through the tournament, and we still got left out. I don't want to say we get in for sure if we win tonight, but I think if we win tonight, we win, and we win. I know for sure if we win 2 of these games, we're in. Winning tonight is the first step, though. So
we win tonight and we're in, and I bet you we keep it close against Kentucky.
All right, last thing. Got about a minute. Does baseball remain undefeated through the weekend? That's a little tough.
I don't know, but the best pitching matchup in the nation is going to be Friday night.
Yes, it's going to be awesome.
You know what? Yes.
Undefeated?
Sweep in Gainesville.
You know what? Florida's reeling a little bit coming off that Florida State mashing in midweek, which is a tough midweek. I get it. I'm gonna go with the sweep in Gainesville.
I'd just like to see them win the road series.
I say we win the road series. Then we get to go 2-1.
Just win every series and you're good.
Oh, you'll be hosting multiple games.
You go 2-1 every weekend.
2-1.
But
thank you guys for
I'll go
coming
with the sweep.
Thanks, Bronny. Good job today.
That's the Thursday version of TexAgs Radio. I will join you back here in the big chair tomorrow as to end the week, and we'll recap the game tonight, Aggies and Ole Miss. Louis Bellina on the other side of the break. This has been TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.